background, in honor of Grandma. I actually put a picture of her here, but I'm kind of blocking the view. So you can see my little grandma. There she is in the middle. I'm not sure how young she was in that picture, but she worked very hard. And just a reminder that as we move forward today in our meeting, that we're all a continuation of a long story of Black people finally getting the liberation we all desire and deserve. At this time, we'll ask everybody to put their information in the chat. Please be sure that you put which branch that you represent, and also who you are and your information. And I think, George, is it appropriate if we go ahead, since we have a fairly smaller group than anticipated, to let people just take kind of 1 minute to introduce themselves as well?
30 seconds would be better, but yes, let's have people introduce themselves. Thanks, Shamaya. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll call on you from the Brady Bunch screen here that I see. Philip Cole, can you give a few seconds to just introduce yourself and let us know what branch you're from? If you're not quite sure yet, that's fine.
Well, I am sure of a few things, very few things in life these days, but I am from San Francisco and a member of the San Francisco branch. And I enjoyed this past week watching the movie Summer of Soul, which was the Harlem Music Festival in 1969, which was a very moving movie, which I teared up in the first 10 minutes, seeing the solidarity of Black people in 1969, right before the genocide of crack took place, and followed up with the documentary by Kenneth Burns on Muhammad Ali, who was a close friend of my family, and seeing the history of the Black struggles in the 60s and his journey through America. Thank you so much. I recommend both of those visuals to the group. They were very incisive and informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. And if you can put that information in the chat so we have it free and available if we want to go back to it. And Shantae McLaughlin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Shantae McLaughlin. I live in Atlanta. Well, in East Point, Georgia. I'm a member of the Atlanta Metro branch, and I'm running for city council here in East Point. I'm also a mental health, prison reform, and homeless rights advocate.
Thank you, Shantae. Ashley Carrington.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Carrington. I'm sorry I'm not able to be on camera. I'm actually in transit right now, but I am in Cary, North Carolina. I'm a member of the Triangle branch. I'm also a member of WILP, North Carolina Poor People's Campaign, Raised Up and Fed Up, and I'm the cultural arts representative for the George Floyd Memorial Center.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. Rosa, are you in a position to yourself?
Yeah, I can't be on camera because I'm actually driving, but I'm hands-free driving. So, I mean, I'm hands-free talking. I'm a member of the Triangle branch, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Thank you. Sister Teresa Alamine, are you in a position to introduce yourself?
Call on me last. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. D. Murphy, are you able to introduce yourself? And we'll just assume that if you're not on camera, it's because you cannot be for some reason.
Hi, I'm Dee Murphy. I live in central Minnesota. I just was invited in by George Friday and Teresa Alamine. So I've been attending about 4 or 5 of these meetings, and I'm just figuring out more about the organization and learning at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee. And I have somebody with the number 7 that starts with area code 762. Are you in a position to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Etta Lamb, and I recently became a member, and I'm from the Columbus, Georgia branch.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing you, but I think you're from the Columbus, Georgia branch.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
can you repeat your
yes.
name one more time?
Etta Lamb.
Etta Lamb from Columbus,
Yes.
Georgia. Okay, thank you, Etta. And I
You're welcome.
think we have introduced everyone. Let me just scroll down really quickly here. Okay. So Sister Teresa, we've introduced everyone else.
Okay, sorry. Teresa Elamine, organizer of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia. Very glad that our board member, Etta Lamb from who's here in the Columbus area, and she travels back and forth to Columbiana, Alabama, retired teacher, and she just joined on Friday. We're very glad of that. Glad she could get on because she doesn't believe in computers, so she'll always be on with a phone. But I'm the founder of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, which is the fiscal sponsor for the 3 new branches in the South. Triad, Metro Atlanta, and Fannie Lou Hamer.
Thank you. At this point in our agenda, we're now going to do the opening and the role of SARN. And I believe Teresa Elamine is going to take over that part of the discussion.
Forgive me, I've been trying to get down on my late lunch, and I have a rather unstable internet connection, so I can't turn on my video without running the risk of dropping off. But in December of 2020, the Southern Anti-Racism Network voted to support branch building of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. So we began immediately by building the Columbus, Georgia, Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And we had our inaugural meeting in March of 2021. George Friday, who has been working with SARN and was on the board of SARN, she began building the Triad branch. Shante McLaughlin began building the Metro Atlanta branch. The Metro Atlanta branch and the Triad branch did their launch in May. During that process of building the branches, it became clear that we would need more support. So we decided to build the Black Liberation Caucus as part of the branch building in the South. So we also invited people to participate in the launch of the Black Liberation Caucus in May of 2021. That's when we announced to the organization that we were starting up the Black Liberation Caucus. We had our first full meeting in June 27th, which was actually my birthday. So we've been meeting as a caucus since June and developing the basis of political agreement. But the Southern Anti-Racism is committed as a fiscal sponsor for support of the Black Liberation Caucus and our needs. In addition to the branches we're building in the South, there will be a few more branches coming online in the next few months. But that's been our primary role with the caucus. The caucus is not a project of the Southern Anti-Racism Network. It is completely independent as a caucus. inside of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. But because we took the initiative in the South to start it, that's why the Southern Anti-Racism Network has a real commitment, financial and otherwise, to building branches in the South and building the Black Liberation Caucus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. We're going to lean on Teresa a couple of more times during this meeting, especially as we have this strategic discussion. I'm going to take about 4 minutes to frame the discussion and then ask Teresa to help facilitate a conversation about some of the things I'll be bringing up. Our overview here, building power in WILF US through the Black Liberation Caucus. Teresa mentioned that when we were building these branches in the South, it was clear that we needed more support from each other, support to create conditions for more Black women to be recognized as leaders within WILF and have that space, and also the support to bring in and new members and build branches led by women, and knowing those women are going to be coming into an institution, an organization that can truly support them. So let's spend a second giving a quick broad brush stroke about where WILF is as an institution and organization. I do, as part of my work, I do a lot of community building, anti-oppression, anti-racism work. In the early and mid 90s, along with other people who were developing the field, you might say, when it comes to anti-racism, anti-oppression, which now people call equity and inclusion, we created this continuum, the continuum on becoming a dismantling oppression institution. So it ranges, you can see here, from 1 to 6, and let me try to make it big enough so that you can read. The characteristics is the word I use here that describe how an organization that is explicitly segregated and institutionally racist, of course, institutional racism is everywhere, but an organization that is segregated moves along the continuum to become one that is a transforming institution or one that is fully transformed, which I've never seen. A number 6, even in groups I'm part of, and we've been really working on it. Please read for yourself here. I'm not going to read them out loud. Well, there is Ms. Etta Lamb. I will read this. So under 1, which is like a segregated institution like the Klan, it says the institution intentionally and publicly excludes, segregates, or alienates socially oppressed groups. So we know that WILF doesn't publicly do that. Under number 2, in the same sort of definition category, it says the institution is tolerant of a limited number of people from socially oppressed groups with quote unquote proper perspective and credentials. Now that definitely is WILF. And then one of the other characteristics under 1 is that it intentionally and publicly enforces the oppressive status quo through the institution. Again, WILF would never do that publicly, it's just not heard of. But under number 2, may still secretly limit or exclude people from socially oppressed groups in contradiction to their public policies. Also familiar with them. The last one I'll point out under 1 and 2 is institutionalization of oppression includes formal policies and practices, teachings, and decision-making in all levels. And under 2 is the institution continues to intentionally maintain status quo power and privilege through its formal policies and practices, teachings, and decision-making on all levels of institutional life. So almost everything under number 2 and a couple under number 1 fit for WILF US as we currently are experiencing the organization. All motivation why we have the Black Liberation Caucus and why we have our basis for political agreement. Part of that basis for political agreement I want to call your attention to in my last couple of minutes are our areas of work. Those areas of work include reparations, freeing all political prisoners, ending mass incarceration and creating criminal justice reform, ending voter suppression. Palestine solidarity or Solidarity Free Palestine, the anti-racist transformation of WILF-US, solidarity with other oppressed peoples of color, universal health care, Medicare for all, and immigration justice. This is our area, our basis of political agreement, the BOPA, is a living document and one that we may over time revise, add to, but those areas of work are our undisputed focus for the Black Liberation Caucus. I bring those up in this discussion, framing our strategy discussion today, because there's also the Advancing Human Rights Committee of WILF-US. And the Advancing Human Rights Committee was on hiatus, one might say, for many months, did not have a leadership and was not functioning, and has been revived as of about March or April of this year. And there are subcommittees in the Advancing Human Rights. 3 of those subcommittees, those of us on the Black Liberation Caucus, have taken some leadership around, or at least we said we would convene, meaning we would set up the Zoom and send out the emails and encourage people to attend. Those 3 subcommittees are ending mass incarceration, which Teresa El-Amin said she would convene, anti-racism, which I've agreed to convene, and the Decade for People of African Descent, which Teresa El-Amin, I believe, is convening. So that is my framing our discussion. I just sort of put the information out there. So now, Teresa, if you would help us point out some of the key pieces that we need to discuss, and I'll help us facilitate that discussion. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes for this. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I just want to say how great it is to be here today on this beautiful sunny day in Columbus, Georgia, and great that 3 members of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch are here. Deidre Whittlesey joined us, so she didn't get a chance to do an introduction. So I hope we can go back to her at some point. But there are actually 5 subcommittees of the Advancing Human Rights Committee. One that you didn't mention, which has a convener, is the Immigration Justice Subcommittee, which is especially important given the fact that Haitians, who most certainly deserve consideration for asylum, are being beat back at the Texas border and deported in large numbers. And there's actually an emergency call meeting of the Green Party Black Caucus tonight at 9 p.m. So several of us who are members of the Green Party and the Black Caucus, like George Friday, D. Murphy, and I will be at that meeting tonight at 9 p.m. where we'll be looking at that immigration justice issue. So we don't want to leave out those 3 committees, anti-racism, ending mass incarceration, and immigration justice, as committees where we hope that many of the members of the Black Liberation Caucus will help staff. I believe Rosa Saavedra and Rita Gonzalez have agreed to staff. Rosa is in the triangle, Rita is in the triad, and I also know, and they're both board members in the spirit of transparency. They're both board members of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, along with Adrian Bernal, who is based in Metro Atlanta. and he's in the Metro Atlanta branch, and he couldn't be with us today, I guess. But those are three kind of key committees that have held meetings over the last month. And there are two other committees. Julie from the Boston branch is actually kind of leading the work on CEDAW, the convention to end all forms of discrimination against women, which is a standing UN convention called CEDAW, CEDAW, Convention to End All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Julie is leading that section of work inside of Advancing Human Rights. And then Barbara Nielsen is leading a committee, a subcommittee inside of Advancing Human Rights called UN Women or something to that effect. They haven't met yet, and I don't believe Julie's subcommittee has met yet either. But the three subcommittees that have met, I think it's important for us strategically to pay attention to them, because they also are within our BOPA. So we're fighting for ending mass incarceration or criminal justice reform. We're also fighting for immigration justice, and we're fighting for the anti-racist transformation of will. Oh, I did forget that George mentioned the UN decade for people of African descent, which ends on December 31st, 2024. That was one subcommittee that I proposed, but we haven't been able to get that off the ground yet because when we tried to convene a breakout for it, I was the only person there. So I'm hoping that people like Philip Cole and other folks who know about the UN decade for people of African descent and other people of African descent would agree to participate in that subcommittee because the full committee meeting of Advancing Human Rights will take place on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And so that meeting is open, but you do need to send a message to ahrchair@wilfus.org. You must send a message to Joan Goddard at ahrchair@wilfus.org in order to get the Zoom information for the meeting on Wednesday, the 29th, and perhaps George can send out a reminder later. But that's how I see us moving forward in terms of certain priority areas that connect with advancing human rights. Of course, we have other other areas, and I'm not sure in looking at the grid, George, where you have ending mass incarceration, anti-racism, and decade for people of African descent. I have proposed that the decade for people of African descent be called UN decade / reparations, because the main work of the decade is reparations for people of African descent worldwide. So the UN decade is an international thing. So all of the African people in countries like Germany capitalize reparation, UN decade / reparations. And so people in Germany and in the UK and all the countries that had slavery are working on it. And I would guess that members of of wealth in the UK, like Marie Claire. You remember Marie Claire, right, George? She's formerly of the DRC, but she lives in the UK, and she's been working on reparations in the UK as a wealth member. So that's why it's so important that we build the UN decade to connect with sections in Africa and African descendants in the European countries where slavery was practiced, particularly the UK. And so that's how I see these three areas of work. But let's not leave out immigration justice. So there should be actually 4 areas in the grid that you put there. I'm sorry, I didn't notice the grid before the start of the meeting, because I'm sure you did send it out. But immigration justice should be a 4th area. And I would propose that we prioritize these 4 areas, given our size, and given the fact that the Advancing Human Rights Committee is going to be given resources. And these committees, based on who's been in attendance, will take in the triangle, the triad, Fannie Lou Hamer, Metro Atlanta, Boston, and hopefully San Francisco. And I believe Gene Kennedy of Fresno has attended some of these meetings as well. So there are quite a few members of the Black Liberation Caucus who have actually attended the Advancing Human Rights Committee. So George, I would appreciate us having a little bit of discussion. I thought there might have been questions that people had about SARN's role. And I know we moved quickly from the SARN role item into the continuum, but it would be good if we could most certainly open up and hear people's thoughts on the 4 areas of work proposed as a kind of priority by doing the work through advancing human rights, because it would give us a chance to work with people in other branches. And there are quite a few branches, Sacramento, and quite a few other branches who are involved. It looks like Shemaya is raising her hand, George.
Yes, and I want to get to you, Shemaya, but 2 other things first. One, give Deirdre a chance to introduce herself. My sister, who's also a member, is here, Stacy Friday. She might want to say hi. So that first, Deirdre, and then Stacy. And then my recommendation under this is that we note who on the Black Liberation Caucus will be convening or participating in these areas of work. So the 3 listed here, including immigration justice, if we can get that before we leave. And then third, to Shemaya's question. So Deirdre.
Hi, I'm
I
Deidre
pronounced it wrong.
Whittlesey, and I am vice chair on the SARN's board, and I am happy to work with the Black Caucus. I work with DFACS, been with the agency for 27 years, and thank you all for letting me speak.
Well, Deidre neglected to say that her role in WILF is that she's on the steering committee of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And she is also the other representative to the Black Caucus. She and I are the 2 representatives of record to the Black Caucus. Deidre tends to be a person of very few words, but I think it's important to note that she's the representative from Fannie Lou Hamer, she and I, to the Black Liberation Caucus. So I'm very glad she could hop on.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I apologize.
Hi, I'm Stacy. Hello.
All right, then. Go ahead, Shemaya. You're muted. Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, I would be interested in working with reparations. This has been something that me and my mom have worked on for a long time, mainly my mom. But one of the things that I wonder is, in terms of other groups also working on reparations, who have we sort of reached out to? Are there any groups that have stated that they'd be willing to assist in this work? And really, I guess I need to get a solid understanding about where WILP is in terms of reparations work and other work, as far as coalition building and what other, I don't want to assume we haven't been. I don't want to assume that we are. I'm just really asking the question about what has been done so far. Maybe what's been successful or even not successful in that area.
Shemaya, I don't have a lot of information about that. My strong recommendation would be to attend a meeting when one is set up, and that's the place to answer and explore those questions. In our initial meetings.
George, I know you're kind of pushing the agenda, but I've been working on reparations for about 30 years. And I have been involved with WILF for quite some time, and I've never known the question of reparations to come up inside of WILF, because until recently, WILF has been an overwhelmingly white-led, middle-class, women-led organization. But I do work with, and I'm hoping that the Black Liberation Caucus, now that we're formed, will also work with the Black Caucus of the Green Party. There is a reparations working group in the Green Party Black Caucus, and I'm on that. I'm also a member of the long-standing, I believe, 40-year-old organization called NCOBRA, the National.
Yes, okay, that's what, yeah, okay, that's what I was, all right, okay.
Yeah,
good.
The National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And then, of course, I always mess up the name of the reparations group that Ron Daniels of the Black world, 21st century, but he has a very specific reparations group that he started, and they work in collaboration with NCOBRA. And so I've attended quite a few reparations conferences recently. And the good news is that we're closer to passing reparations legislation than we've been in 40 years, because John Conyers worked for years to try to get HR 40 out. And when he became head of judiciary, Nancy Pelosi told him, no, it wasn't time. But after he passed away, the Congresswoman from Texas, Sheila Jackson Lee, I believe, she pushed forward the HR 40 inside the Congress again. And now there's a comparable bill being pushed for by Cory Booker in the Senate. So we're closer than we've ever been in the US in terms of really pushing it forward. And because the Democratic Party owes Black people so much at this point, strategically, we're better placed. So it's an important time to start up the UN Decade/Reparations subgroup of advancing human rights. So when we meet on Wednesday for the Advancing Human Rights full committee, Shemaya, will you be able to join us?
I'm not sure what my calendar looks like, but I will clear it. And I will also bring my mom, who was one of the founding members of NCOBRA.
Is your mother also a member of WILF?
She may or may not be, but I'll have that discussion with her, and I may even connect y'all two together. She's in New Orleans, Louisiana. She's the female co-chair there. So we'll kind of connect offline to keep things moving here.
Shemaya, it's important to note, I know within the Black Caucus, we sometimes let people come in as guests, but in the Advancing Human Rights Committee on Wednesday, only actual WILF members can attend that.
Okay, that's not a problem. I'll work with my mom and kind of talk with her about it. She definitely is very pro coalition building. One of the things that I've run into as I'm speaking with people about reparations, and the reason this question was so important to me was because people have a lot of different ideas about what reparations is, who should get it, and all of those things. And people sort of look down upon in Cobra, but they don't recognize that they've actually done a lot more legislatively than some other organizations have. And if you really think about it, there's going to be a lot more power and value in pushing reparations if we can get everybody together and really build a coalition around what should be done. So I thank you for answering the question. I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time, but thank you for answering that question, and we'll talk offline.
Well, Shemaya, please note that I put my telephone numbers in the chat.
Okay, thank you. I'll write that down.
Anyone else for the stack or have a comment or question on this topic? And there are meetings, subcommittee meetings coming up. We'll make sure that the dates for that are shared with people.
George, I think we need to get commitments from people now while we're on the topic of who is willing to be on which 4 committees. We shouldn't just leave it hanging, George.
No, we're not leaving it hanging. I see that D. Murphy's hand is up. And if we can get people to put in the chat or say for me to note here, which of these subcommittees you'll be participating in. Go ahead, Dee.
Hi, yes, I have a question regarding membership. I looked at the WILF website. I finally found a connection to the WILF website to join. I understand there are dues, and right now I have extreme economic hardship. I'm at the point where I'm borrowing money from friends just to subsist right now through this pandemic. And so I'm wondering, they're wanting $10 a month. They're wanting 35 to join. So are there honorary memberships, or how can I participate if I don't have money on hand right now? Because, I would love to attend on Wednesday. And I heard that you said it's only for members. I know I've done it like about 5 or 6 meetings now. So is there anything that can be done so that I can attend in the meantime, until such a time as I'm able to spare the funds? Thank you. Over.
Is there a direct response for D from anyone?
I would be, let somebody else go and not put me on the stack.
Okay.
Okay.
And I know Rose is on stack.
Yeah, well, I have my hand raised, but in response to D, I'd be happy to sponsor or to, pay your WILF dues.
That's great. Is there a way that we can figure that out, Dee? We can get together and, or Rosa, if you can do that, I can figure out how to do that. I know that.
No, it's not, George. I did it for Etta Lamb. So the only thing that Rosa needs to do is get Dee's information, her address, her phone number, her email, and she would simply go on the website and put in Dee's name. And then when it comes to the billing part, she will put in her billing information. And if she can do it today, it would be great. But it just means that Dee and Rosa will get together. So they should exchange numbers in the chat so that they can get together today so that Rosa can get the information. And Rosa beat me to the punch, and I appreciate it because it's the end of the month and I'm kind of low on cash. But that's what needs to happen, because I did the same thing for Etta Lamb, and it worked perfectly. I put in Etta's information, and then when it got to the billing part, I put in my information.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
George, if you could put, actually, if you could text me Dee's number, or else just put my number in the chat, because I'm driving, and then
Yeah,
Dee,
Dee,
if you could,
put your
if you could
information in the chat, Dee, and I'll share it with Rosa.
by
Because you're
text.
driving, you won't be able to see it, or you can text me,
Yeah.
Dee. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for anybody.
Thank you, Rosa. I really don't want anyone to, like give charity or anything. I was just wondering if there was another way. I would feel bad taking money from you, Rosa. I don't know you.
Well,
Even, to buy me into the membership.
I know you've been on several calls, and I'm just doing this in solidarity with you, so I don't see it as charity, and I hope you don't either.
Thank you.
Support from our community is support from each other. It's not
That's
anything to feel other than we love you and we want you here.
Thank you.
So Rosa, your hand was up.
It's still up.
Okay, I can take it down, but not right now. But I just wanted to say on the issue of Black farmers, BIPOC farmers, who have been stopped from receiving monies that was allocated to them under the CARES Act. But white farmers complained about it. So in the spirit of seeing what the landscape is like, I just want to lift that up, that there's a lot of resistance, people thinking that, somebody asked a question about who should get it and what's it for. There's a lot of resistance, and the BIPOC farmers money that was legislated is one of those. So I'm not sure if people knew about it. I'm sure you all do, but just wanted to lift that up as some resistance.
Resistance to people getting reparations as justice because they don't want anybody having anything.
Exactly.
I want to check chat. Give me a second while I'm checking the chat and seeing if anybody has a question. I don't see hands up, but I don't want to miss anyone. Okay.
Well, it would be important to say who signed up for what committees, because I see quite a few people have signed up for the UN Decade / reparations, which means that we have that subcommittee staff, and we already had the other 3 subcommittee staff. So that's very good that we can report to the Advancing Human Rights. And I believe Rosa is saying that the Black farmers issue definitely falls under reparations. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Rosa? Oh,
Rosa?
you're muted, so I can't hear Rosa respond.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's actually what the political fallout is that there's claims that this is too much like reparation, that this is reparation. I think Lindsey Graham even said this is reparations. And really what the legislation meant to do, without saying it, was to provide reparations in this one particular area, and it was shot down.
Well, we have that coming up in lots of places, because quite a few cities, and I think maybe even 1 or 2 states, have passed reparations resolutions and have agreed to pay reparations when it comes to redlining and housing. So reparations are being paid already in small amounts, but the real push is towards the federal payment of reparations, United States wide. But we can expect to start receiving reparations in small amounts in different communities based on how hard people are fighting. And in the reparations movement, there are reparations that are being given out at the state level. So at the last NCOBRA convention, many states reported on reparations that were being voted for, like the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. They're fighting for reparations in the state of North Carolina for that and have been for years. So it's nothing really unusual that the farmers should be receiving reparations and getting it in whatever form they were trying to get it. It just shows how hard we have to continue to fight against white supremacy, trying to deny us our due. So I'm glad to bring in the farmers issue under the UN Decade/Reparations Committee. If there are no objections from Dee, Ashley, Shamaya, and others who have signed up for that committee.
No objections.
Sounds good.
Now, George Philip Cole has signed up for something. I'm not.
You still with us, Teresa? I'll check the chat and make sure what Philip has signed up for. No one will be ignored. But we're gonna need you for this next conversation. You still here, Teresa? You good?
Well, that would put you on the ending mass incarceration subcommittee of the 4 committees we're talking about. So our next meeting is October 4th at noon, which would be 9 a.m. your time. And so I'm sure George will get out the meeting dates for all the subcommittees. We'll put off on doing a meeting date for the UN Decade until after the meeting on Wednesday, the 29th.
Pardon me for interrupting. Hopefully I can attend the October 4th meeting, but I do have a trial to attend on October 4th. They actually should be ending on October 4th, and I really need to be paying attention to that. There's a big trial going on in San Francisco with the
Philip, we lost your sound. Philip? Are you back? Philip is on in 2 places, but one of them is gone. So maybe that's the one where
Yes, to finish. Oh, there she is.
my Wi-Fi went away briefly or lingeringly. When I left, Philip was telling us about maybe not being able to make the October 4th meeting because of going to court. I'm trusting that we're caught up.
Well,
Yes?
actually, George, I was saying to you to please let people know that the Immigration Justice Subcommittee is meeting on Friday, October 1 at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And the person who is convening it, Tina Shelton, would need to get contact information for anybody who is interested in immigration justice. And I'm hoping that Rosa will sign on for that if possible.
Yes, I would like to sign on to that, but if I need to do it now, I can't do it now.
Oh, no, there's nothing to do now because your email will simply be forwarded to Tina. So when she sends out the Zoom information, she'll be sure to include you.
Okay, then yeah, send somebody, George, if that's you, can you send Tina, my email address?
Yes, later tonight or in the morning, I will send the recording to our meeting. Along with that recording, I will send key dates of upcoming meetings. So everyone will have that in their hand by noon Eastern tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.
All righty. So we have another key strategic discussion here. And I know we've leaned on you a lot, today, Teresa, but if you can help frame a discussion around the national board nominations and election, and maybe do that in about 10 minutes.
Less actually. The national board elections for this year are coming up this fall. And I believe the deadline for submitting your application, which is quite a long and detailed application, is October 10th. I had originally said that I would run this year, but based on the acrimony coming from the national board president, I withdrew. And I do know that Philip Cole was considering running, and Dr. Jean Kennedy was considering running, but there's only 3 of us who are eligible to run that I knew about. And that was Julie is eligible to run, but she never said she was running. So strategically, it makes no sense to get in a fight by getting on the national board on this round. So I have delayed plans to get on the national board until 2022, when George Friday will also be eligible to run, and the 2 of us will run for board seats. I'll be running for the membership development board seat in 2022. Right now, the only person on this call who is eligible to run for a board seat this year is Philip Cole. So I would appreciate us hearing from him, because if he's planning on running, then we want to throw our full support behind him. I recall he said that he was going to possibly run for the at-large seat, which is open this year. So I think we should hear from Philip Cole. But the election deadline is looming over the next couple of weeks. It will be coming up. But I've already told him I'm not running this year. I'm running in 2022. Thank you, George.
Philip, are you planning on
Okay.
running?
Okay, I hope everyone here is familiar with Putney Swope. And in that vein, yes, I am still considering running, and hopefully we'll be able to have the paperwork in time to be on the ballot. And yeah, like I said, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Putney Swope, but I think we can vote for ourselves. So I know at least I will get 1 vote, and hopefully many more. Thank you.
Well, Philip, I am a film buff and over 60, and I only heard about Putney Smoke last year. So many people won't, but if you type it in the chat, people can, Google it and find out a little bit about it that way. And as Teresa said, if you do intend on running, we will put our full support behind that, as we would any of the members of the Black Liberation Caucus.
Well, George, you remember that our rule is that we reach agreements by consensus. So you really can't speak for everyone. You do have to ask for consensus on this point. Did you hear me,
We have
George?
anyone who has a question or a concern about the possibility of backing Philip Cole's run for a board seat? Any concerns or questions?
Hi, this is Dee. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So if I get signed up, thanks to Rosa today, am I going to be eligible to vote when he runs?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And Rosa, are you forwarding the information, or how is this?
Rosa's in the car.
Okay,
So it'll be a minute.
okay, so how do we get the information that it was requested earlier for me to become a member to Rosa?
Rosa will be able to get your information from the chat when she gets home and gets the chat. And I
Oh,
will.
no, George, no,
text you.
George. Rosa's on the phone in her car. So she won't be able to save the chat. So you agreed to text Rosa.
That's exactly what I was
please.
saying. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was saying the word text when you began talking. My intention is to text y'all's phone numbers to each other, which I'll do when this is over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, George.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I don't have anything. You were doing the consensus.
Yes, okay. Any other questions? Is there anyone who wishes to stand aside on the decision of supporting Philip Cole if he runs for a board seat? All right, then, no concerns or questions, no stand asides. Is there anyone who wants to block this from happening? And then we have consensus. Those are the steps. All righty.
And allow me to say this. It will be the at-large seat that I will be looking at running for. Thank you so much
All right.
for your support.
And we'll make sure we have information out for people about when elections happen and so that no one misses their chance to vote. One other thing we want to talk about today is a Black Liberation Caucus slate. We know we won't have one for this year's election, but I know from conversations with Teresa Elamine that she does have strategic thinking around this. Will you share that with us, Teresa?
Well, I think I did in the previous comments, so there's no need to take up any more time. In 2 years, all of you will be eligible to run. So for instance, if Dee becomes a member in the next couple of days, in 2023, she will also be eligible to run with all of you who are already members. So George and I talked about running in 2022. I'm running for the membership development chair, and George can choose a position to run for. I know that the membership chair is coming up in 2022, and I've already told the people on membership development that I'm running. And so that's the strategy that everyone who is on the Black Liberation Caucus in the year 2023 will consider running for office when a bunch of seats will be up and you'll just have your choice. So I'm hoping that all of you will consider running for the national board in 2023. So you'll be eligible. It takes 24 months of continuous membership in order to run. And you will be eligible if you pay your dues next year. You will be eligible to run in the fall of 2023. That's all I have on that, George.
Thank you. Any questions? Start thinking long-term or midterm, folks, 2 and 3 years out. Any comments or thoughts about the agenda so far? Because we're moving to our announcements.
No.
Okay. So
Hi.
I heard a voice. Who's
Hi,
that?
George. I don't know if you saw my chat message, but when you were disconnected, the recording stopped. And I didn't know if you had wanted to continue recording or not. So
Yes, it's recording now. It's came back when I came back. And I didn't see the chat. And luckily, when you record, you get the chat, because otherwise, when you leave and come back, you only see the chat from, when you were back. But thankfully, I got the whole chat because of the recording.
Oh, okay, because I didn't receive a notice that you were recording again. So thank you very much.
Sure. Let me make sure it is. Yes, it is. Yay.
Well, George, on sharing the recording, I just had a question to make sure you're only sharing it with members of the Black Caucus.
I am. I'm sending the link to members of the Black Caucus. If you share the link with someone else, they can see it because it's not limited to just the emails I send it to. So if you share it with anybody, they will see it.
Well, I would like for us to reach consensus that we would not share it beyond members of the Black Caucus. Because I think Gene Kennedy and other people who missed the meeting would find it useful, but I don't think it should be shared with white allies at this point. And I see Philip is raising his hand, but I would really like for us to reach consensus on not sharing it beyond members of the Black Liberation Caucus.
Okay.
Before we move forward. Thank you.
Philip, is your comment on this
Well,
proposal for
both.
consensus?
I agree that it should not be shared. And
Okay.
just one technical correction. You do not have to be a member for 24 consecutive months to be on the board. It's you need to be a member 2 out of 3 years to be a member of Wolf, not necessarily consecutive.
Well, I appreciate that technical point by Philip, but my point is that the next consecutive 2 years would let people be eligible at the earliest point. If they want to wait 4 years down and they would have been members for 2 of the years of 4 years, yeah, they could run 4 years down. But the point I was making, Brother Philip, is that people will be eligible at the earliest in 2023, because most of the folks joined in 2021. So by the fall of 2023, they would have 24 months down.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
So we are seeking consensus around limiting the recording to the Black Liberation Caucus members. Are there any concerns or questions on that? Is there anyone who would want to stand aside on voting to limit the recording to Black Liberation Caucus members? Anyone who would want to block that decision? All right, then. Consensus. I will send out the recording, and when I send it out, along with the reminders of meetings that are coming up, I will also say we made this agreement to limit it to our members who are here. I see you clapping there, Philip Cole. So here we are now at announcements. We know we talked about earlier that the Advancing Human Rights meeting is this Wednesday, the 29th at 5 Pacific and 8 Eastern. Sorry, I made it. Oh yeah, 8 Eastern. And to get access to that meeting, if you're not already part of the Advancing Human Rights Committee or subcommittees, email ahrchair@wilfus.org.
Well, George, you repeated PDT twice. So you have 5 PDT and
Yes.
8 PDT, and you meant EDT on the
That's
8
right.
part.
Yes, and I nearly apologized for it, but didn't. But thanks for pointing that out for us. And it's on the second line too, same mistake twice, but I'm sure you get the idea, people. Tuesday is the board meeting for WILF US. It is limited to the board. People who are on the board meeting and want to make comments do that at the end of the board meeting. And to get access to that, you email secretary@wilfus.org. It does start at 8 Eastern and often goes beyond 10 o'clock, often way beyond 10 o'clock. So that's just a heads up. But you may want to attend the board meeting as well. I'll send times for the next upcoming meetings while Julie is here nearly at the end. There's a subcommittee meeting on the 1st, another on the 3rd, another on the 4th. I'll make sure you have information for all of those. And I know that last month, hello, Julie.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself to folks?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm mute. Am I muted?
Nope, I hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so my
But I don't hear you now. Where'd you go? Julie? Mercy. Well, I can see that Julie is here. Maybe something's happened with her audio. Oh, man.